The Call of the Wild is a novel by Jack London published in 1903. The story is set in the Yukon during the 1890s Klondike Gold Rush, a period when strong sled dogs were in high demand. The novel's central character is a dog named Buck, a domesticated dog living at a ranch in the Santa Clara Valley of California as the story opens. Stolen from his home and sold into the brutal existence of an Alaskan sled dog, he reverts to atavistic traits. Buck is forced to adjust to, and survive, cruel treatments and fight to dominate other dogs in a harsh climate. Eventually he sheds the veneer of civilization, relying on primordial instincts and lessons he learns, to emerge as a leader in the wild. The Call of the Wild is a touching novel about a great friendship between a dog and a human. The novel carries a high moral, and the author tells us through it that we should never back down because then we will experience the disappointment of failure. We should know how to adjust to the situations we find ourselves in and know that everywhere there are different laws. It was the time of the Great Golden Fever in the USA, and the plot was set in the 19th century. We can see how the poor people lived while they went to look for happiness on the cold north. They expected to find salvation from hunger and poverty, but all they found were hard life conditions and death. Through the dog Buck, the author told us his thoughts about the civilization and progress it made. Buck was a dog who lived a calm, peaceful and cheerful life in a big house. He lived in the sunny California, and the house carried the name of Judge Miller. Buck was guarding the house and his people, and he enjoyed it. He was strong and big with long hair. One day a money-thirsty servant took Buck and sold him to an unknown man. That John Doe decided to take him as far away from his home as possible. He was sold again, and his new owner was a government man named Francois. He carried mail to the distant places like Alaska. Buck saw snow for the first time in his life, but he also encountered hard life conditions. He spent his days pulling the sleigh with the other dogs and delivering mail. Buck was recognized for his bravery, so he was the leader of the dogs. Then he learned the first lesson that was important for him to survive. It was never to fall, because if he did that, he would get torn apart by the other dogs. After some time he got some new owners. They were Charles, Hal, and Mercedes that also owned sleigh, but they had no experience with that job. They also refused to take any advice from other people and did not take care of their dogs. They tortured them, and that was the reason why they had fewer dogs each day. Hal has been particularly brutal to their dogs. One day the sleigh stopped in front of John's cabin. Buck was tired, and he felt horrible. After a few punches by his owners, he decided he wouldn't get up. John couldn't stand to watch Hal beating Buck up, so he decided to confront him. Hal pulled out a knife and headed towards John. In the end, John managed to take the knife away. The sleigh moved forward but without Buck. John warned him that the ice was thin at this time of year, but Hal refused to listen to him, and as a result, they all drowned in the river when the ice broke. Buck stayed with John. It was the beginning of a great friendship. John took care of the dog, washed him and kept him safe, to what the dog responded with loyalty and love. Once Buck even saved John from a river, and on another occasion, John earned $1,600 thanks to Buck. John decided to put the money to good use. He bought some equipment that was necessary for digging up gold. They went to the wilderness in search of gold. They found it, and while they were working the dogs were resting. Buck then felt the call of the wild. He felt something that pulled him deeper and deeper into the forest. He felt an urge that distanced him more and more from his owner John, who he loved more than anything. He met a wolf in the forest, and then he felt the urge to hunt, so he killed a moose. While Buck was in the forest, John was attacked by the Indians, and he was killed. When he came back, Buck attacked the Indians, and they ran away. After John's death, Buck was left alone and he was very sad. A pack of wolves came to the lake. After a struggle, Buck joined them, came back to his roots and the nature he came out of. He was completely free. The legend of a dog that looked like a wolf, who came to the cabin to grieve, was told years later. Jack London's characterization is notably excellent. His human protagonists are well drawn and diverse, as are his canine characters. His prose is fresh and fluid, with none of the tedium encumbering other novels. The Call of the Wild is a pure adventure story with very little overarching societal/moral commentary. In a sense, this is somewhat refreshing. One never gets the feeling that Jack London is trying to impart a particular philosophy or mindset. Violence is mostly subdued, which makes the book's intense climax all the more powerful. There is some mild language, but nothing gratuitous. By narrating Buck's experience, Jack London shows people some of the temporary social characters, the indispensable struggle for mastery and the nature of human beings. It reflects the major thoughts of that time. This video will analyze this theme, the indispensable struggle for mastery. From the story, at first, people may misunderstand it as a dog tale. Buck, a dog, is forced to leave his comfortable life in Judge Miller's family, and he was sold to a pair of French businessmen as a sled dog for the North Gold Rush. When he bears the wilderness and the other dogs, Buck learns that survival comes only with fight and struggle. This serious lesson let him become very close to his forebears, the wolves. If you look deeper, The Call of the Wild is as much a story of humans as it is a dog tale. Buck encounters various incompetent masters who try to break his spirit. Are we like this? But Buck also learns to trust a master who is gentle and gives love. Human beings can be like this, too. The Call of the Wild is not a story for the squeamish or very young. By involving us in the characters' lives, Jack London tells the truth. It is a life-and-death war between the harsh land and the soul every day. There is blood, death, cruelty, but it's the truth. What projects The Call of the Wild towards immortality is Jack London's urgent and vivid style, and his astonishing identification with the world he's describing. His capacity to involve his readers in his story, regardless of literary subtlety, is what many generations of American writers became inspired by. Writing from the perspective of Buck, an impressive Street Bernard and Shepherd mix, London gets readers to feel all the feels as he tells about the 1890s Klondike Gold Rush in the Yukon. To create the piece of historical fiction, he uses the knowledge he gathered during his own year of prospecting gold in the harsh, frigid territory. London focuses on the life of Buck, who is stolen from his lush California home in order to be sold to prospectors and taken to traverse the icy trails of Alaska and northern Canada. Buck's journey, which involves beatings with a club, new masters, fights for food, brawls with other sled dogs and struggles for survival, incites in him the instincts of his wild ancestors and calls on his strength of spirit. The trek transforms him from loyal pet to uninhibited, and at times aggressive, animal. Jack London anthropomorphizes Buck, giving him high-order human thoughts. Buck witnesses and learns from men's experiences. He comes to understand human nature, what makes men good or bad. He discovers and does what is necessary to gain supremacy among his peers. He realizes that to be part of and succeed in a man-made society, he must abide by men's rules. Buck flawlessly represents animals living in a world that is becoming more and more industrialized and controlled by man. In addition to being an adventure story, The Call of the Wild might also be called a love story, love between a man and his dog. Buck relishes the kindness, attention and companionship of his owner John Thornton. The love between the two is a conquering yet conflicting love. Buck experiences increasingly stronger pulls toward his instinctually wild ways, but Thornton is the thin thread tying him to a life among humans. Upon his first encounter with a wolf during an excursion through the forest, Buck's love for Thornton draws him back to camp. It is not until after he is unwillingly separated from Thornton that he reverts to primordial ways. Like any person, Buck struggles with the quest to find life's meaning. He experiences the conflict of choosing between following one's instincts and playing to society's rules and expectations. Again, flawless. Buck might be more relatable and empathetic than many other fictional characters we have come across. There is understandably little dialogue, just a few phrases from Buck's masters and other human contacts. Yet London's third-person presentation is utterly intimate. He masterfully mixes straightforward storyline with bits of philosophy as it pertains to life and what it means to live, and live meaningfully. Perhaps the only thing that could make The Call of the Wild better is focus. London tackles such huge concepts that it can be difficult to parse them out from one another. From animal cruelty to the fight for wealth and power, this book offers many weighty things to think about. But there is a silver lining to this complexity. With each read of The Call of the Wild, readers will find something new to ponder. To readers, Buck's story serves as a parable. And this parable is not stuffy, it is relatable. Life can be upended, and quite easily. London demonstrates the power of inner strength, wit, observation and endurance. Buck utilizes these characteristics, among others, to fight for his life, a life that despite its hardships, he respects and appreciates. Buck exemplifies what is good and natural, despite surrounding negativity and artificiality. For such a short, simple book, it is profound. As all living things do, Buck fights to survive, and he succeeds. While his journey leads to his decivilization, there is something to be said for the joy and satisfaction he gains by identifying with and accepting his ancestral roots. He is awakened. With the universality of The Call of the Wild, it is no wonder it is a classic. The Call of the Wild draws the conclusion that the survival of the fittest. Only people who are constantly adjusting themselves with the change of environment can live better. So when people are in a different environment, they will be subjected to the power of the environment, and will become a different person in a different environment.